Now, you will hear a story that pulls you in like a chilling fairy tale, where small hands reach into a darkness that usually hides far from innocent eyes. This is the story of a girl who learned to be cruel before she learned to tie her shoelaces. Ready? Then sit back, because we're about to embark on the journey of Mary Flora Bell, the youngest serial offender in history. A dark childhood. Mary Flora Bell was born on May 26, 1957, in one of the poorest neighborhoods of Newcastle, England, into a family where finding anything bright was nearly impossible. Her mother, Betty McCricket, became pregnant at 16 and gave birth to Mary at 17. Motherhood was an unbearable burden for her. Imagine this. Right after giving birth, Betty refused even to hold Mary, calling her a burden she didn't want. This was only the beginning of many horrifying moments in Mary's life. Betty worked in a profession involving adult services and often left Mary for long periods, either with relatives or alone. Her husband, William Billy Bell, was a thief who spent most of his life in prison. Betty married him after Mary was born, but his paternity was never confirmed. However, it didn't matter much, as he was barely involved in raising the girl. Mary's childhood was a series of brutal trials. Each day could bring a new twist in this nightmare. Once, when Mary was just 2 years old, Betty threw her out of a first-floor window, claiming it was an accident. But it didn't end there. Betty frequently drugged Mary, leading to severe poisonings. Doctors even suspected that the mother was trying to harm her daughter, but no action was taken. Trading her childhood. Betty went even further by attempting to give Mary to a mentally unstable woman who could not have children of her own. This woman was so obsessed with the idea of having a child that she was ready to go to any lengths. But the plan failed thanks to the intervention of Mary's older sister, Catherine, who found the girl and brought her back home. This incident was another testament to how dangerous life was for the little girl in this environment. Betty's relatives repeatedly offered to take the children into their care, but she stubbornly refused, as if she were tied to this toxic role of a mother. Perhaps she enjoyed having control over the children, even if it meant only pain and suffering for them. The beginning of a dark path. When Mary turned 5, Betty started involving her in her activities. Imagine this: a little girl, barely able to pronounce all the words correctly, forced to please grown men. It was not just cruel, it was barbaric. It's clear that such a childhood left deep scars on Mary's psyche. Mary grew up as a withdrawn, aggressive child, often showing signs of unpredictable behavior. Her mood could shift instantly, from laughter to rage. The constant stress only intensified her anxiety. Mary also suffered from enuresis, which is common in children who experience severe psychological trauma. At school, Mary was isolated, with no friends, except for a 13-year-old neighbor, Norma Bell, who, despite sharing the same surname, had no family ties with her. On May 11, 1968, Mary took her first step towards cruelty. Along with Norma, she lured a 3-year-old neighbor boy to an abandoned air raid shelter. There, Mary pushed him off a roof that was over 2 meters high. Seeing the boy lying motionless, the girls fled without checking on his condition. Fortunately, the boy survived, though he suffered serious head injuries. When he was found, he was in shock but managed to name his attackers, Mary and Norma. The police decided it was an accident or childish mischief and took no action. The first fatal step. 2 weeks after the first incident, Mary crossed the line again. On May 25, 1968, she lured 4-year-old Martin Brown into an abandoned house on St. Margaret's Road. She strangled him and then simply left his body on the floor. Children who accidentally found Martin initially thought he was just sleeping, but when it became clear that he was dead, horror gripped the entire neighborhood. The police could not find clear evidence of violence and considered Martin's death an accident. After this, Mary and Norma decided to take another step. They broke into a local nursery, creating chaos by scattering toys, furniture, and leaving eerie messages on the walls like, "Martin Brown died because I did it." However, the police ignored these clues and didn't link them to the recent. Mary continued to remain free. A cruel finale. On July 31st of the same year, Mary and Norma lured 3-year-old Brian Howe to a wasteland near their neighborhood. This time it was even more horrific. The girls not only strangled the boy, but also attempted to inflict additional severe injuries. The signs of violence were too obvious to ignore. The police began to seriously investigate the case, and soon discovered that Mary and Norma were involved in both murders. On August 13, 1968, Mary Bell was arrested along with Norma. During the investigation, the girls blamed each other, trying to avoid responsibility. However, the court found Mary guilty and sentenced her to life imprisonment. Norma, unlike Mary, was acquitted due to insufficient evidence of her direct involvement in the murders. A new beginning or an escape? In 1980, after 12 years in prison, Mary Bell was released. She was given a new identity and has since lived a hidden life, trying to escape from her horrific past. Although her new name and whereabouts remain secret, her story will forever remain in the annals of crime as one of the most chilling cases involving child perpetrators. Reflections. This story is not just a criminal case. It is a tragedy of a child who became a victim of her cruel environment and turned into a monster. It makes us reflect on how important the environment is in shaping each of us and what consequences childhood trauma can have. It is important to remember that any violence experienced by children can have serious effects on their mental health and behavior in the future. Mary Flora Bell's story is a lesson on how crucial it is to provide safety and support to children, especially in conditions of adversity. Society must be vigilant for signs of violence and ensure necessary help for those in need. Conclusion. This case remains one of the most horrifying criminal stories related to children. However, its lessons can help us better understand how to prevent such tragedies in the future and create a safer environment for every child who needs our help and protection. We must use this knowledge to build a more compassionate and supportive society for each child in need.